going on, everybody? I'm Vinny Costa, editor of Street Muscle Magazine, and your host of the RodCAST. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Greg Acosta. And hey, what's going on, Greg?
Hey, Vinny, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Cool, man. Well, Greg, today we have a very fun guest, someone I've been wanting to bring on for a while. His name's Shawn Davis. He's the owner and proprietor of AutotopiaLA, and he's a notable YouTube personality. Let's go ahead and bring him on.
All righty. If I can click the right buttons.
Hey, what's going on, Shawn?
What's happening, guys?
Not a whole lot, man. We've been looking forward to this all week, and we're glad that you can make time in your busy schedule for us. And we're happy to have you. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Good to be here with you guys.
So for our readers, viewers, listeners, Shawn, you run a very successful business in LA, an automobile storage business. But it's a lot more than that. We actually did an article on you that we published in Street Muscle Magazine, I think mid last year. It's called Shawn Davis, Autotopia LA's Rising Star. And basically, before we get into this whole interview that I'm dying to get into, why don't you just give us a little rundown about the business and what it is that you do?
Sure. Well, it's funny. I don't know if you can hear the background, but there's a car coming in right now. Yeah, I started the business. It's a vehicle storage and then all the related services to that. So it's anything from, like, right now, taking delivery of a car that was just completed being built, and then setting up the transpo of that going across the country, handling DMV services, helping to pair clients with builders to, if somebody wants to build a custom car, making sure I'm setting them up. Now, that thing's loud. It's not going to be long. I promise you. He's going to shut
No worries,
up.
Shawn. If I can hear you, everyone else can hear you. It's all good.
Yeah, it's the nature of the beast here, is I can go from it being quiet where I'm looking for stuff to do to all of a sudden completely out of control and I can't keep up with any of it. Which is fun though. I could never do the office job, where it's a predictable day every day of my life. I would just completely lose my mind. I like the unpredictability of it. I like putting in, I work between the YouTube channel, the other social media stuff I do, and then running my business here. I put in on average 100 hours a week, and most of it's a lot of fun,
Definitely, man. Well, obviously you're doing well. You have some really high profile clients, high profile builds that you showcase on your YouTube channel. And I want to get into all that. But before we do, I think it's important that we explain this kind of long road to where you're at now, because it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you've been into cars like your whole life. So can we start there? Like your early days, right? Like, are you from the LA area?
I am. I was born in LA, and then when I was pretty young, my family moved down to Orange County. So I spent the early part of my life in Orange County, and then I was a musician. That's all I wanted to do my whole life. So when I was like 18, 19 years old, somewhere around there, moved up to LA to be part of the whole Hollywood music scene in the early or like mid 80s.
Very cool.
When I had lots of hair and it was, out to here or whatever.
Definitely.
But yeah, I've been a California guy my whole life. I've moved away a few times, but I always come back here. I love it. It's home to me,
So, in those early days, I know in the article I was reading that your father's kind of the one who got you into cars, and you started saving up, and eventually you got a 70 Mustang Fastback, or was it a 69?
No, it was a 70.
It was a 70 with a 351 Cleveland. It was a real hot rod, right?
It was centerline wheels.
Yeah, man, I dug it. With
like a cool wheel.
The black hood. It was totally cool. Is that like a grail for you? Have you tried to find that particular car? Do you still feel the same attachment to certain vehicles now that you deal with them on a constant basis?
I do. I still, I grew up in my dad was super into Porsche when I was a kid. 356s, speedsters, back when he could buy them for a couple grand, and you know, do some of the work himself and then have work done and then sell them. And like he thought he hit just massive payday. The last one he sold, I think, was in 1971, 72, something like that. I was like 6 or 7 years old when the last one went away. He got 10 grand for it, and he just couldn't believe he sold it for that much money.
What do you think that same? Yeah.
I'm talking a numbers matching Porsche Speedster. You know,
What would something like that go for now?
$500,000.
Holy hellfire!
I mean, I have one. It's not here right now. My client has it out, but he bought it about 1.5 years ago, and he paid $500,000 for it. A numbers matching, restored, not an all original, but it is a restored numbers matching car.
That's awesome.
$500,000. Yeah.
That's cool. So that was the impetus. That was like what got you into hot rodding. You saw your old man working on bikes, on cars.
Yep.
You said, I got to be a part of it.
Yep. I just fell in love with it right away as a little kid. And my uncle always had cars, and his pals were all hot rodders. They used to run up and down Van Nuys Boulevard when that was the cruise and drag racing and stuff. And
very cool.
And it just captured me right away, you know.
So by the time you got into it, things were in full swing. Some people might say that they had the heyday of hot rodding. And then when you were into it, was, you know, 80s, 90s, when you were like of age to have some cool cars. But that was also the time that you started going to school. And I know you were studying business, which is kind of funny because now you run a business, but it wasn't for you at the time. If I understand that correct, right?
Not at all. The deal with my mom and dad was, out of high school, if I went to college, they would pay for my living expenses and pay for college and stuff. I just had to pay for, like, you know, going out and gas and things like that. But they were going to cover everything, but they knew all I cared about was music. So my dad's deal with me was, you have to take business classes and I'll pay for everything. If it's just going to be music, you're on your own. So I did both, but I excelled in the music classes because I applied myself. You know, I was really committed and driven towards that. And then I would catch up on sleep during the business classes. And, you know, I skated through the first year where my dad didn't see my, I don't know if they're not called report cards, but my grades. And then at the end of that year, he said, hey, I want to see how you're doing in your business classes. I tried to just tell him I'm doing great. He said, cool. I want to see what your grades are looking like. And then he saw that I never actually show up other than to go in there and go to sleep. So I got cut off.
Well, interestingly enough, I mean, that kind of ended up forcing your hand, right? Because then you got like real deep into the music scene.
I did. That really... It was a great thing that my dad did that, because it drove me to have to figure out a way to go make a living, you know. And in those days of music, it was the old model of music. You know, today's a whole different world, but in that time, it was work your butt off, try to build something, hopefully get a record deal, and then hopefully the record deal goes well and you become, you know, a household name. So that was really the modality. You know, during the daytime, I was working, nights was playing music. My day job was actually a cool job. I was a motorcycle messenger, so I was ripping around Southern California all day on a motorcycle and getting paid to do it.
That sounds like a good time, man.
It was actually pretty cool at a young age. You know, it was a pretty fun job. And then nights were full of just playing music and, you know.
What was that like, making that transition to where you're like, you know, a college student, you're working part-time, you're also playing some music, to just being like, well, I gotta give it my all. I gotta, you know, if I'm going to make a run at this, I really got to make a run at it.
Yeah.
Because whenever I hear interviews with musicians, they say that there always comes a point where they had to say, I can't have a backup plan. If I'm really going to be successful, I have to just give 100% to it. And is that where you're at?
It was, man. I truly didn't have a backup plan. I mean, I dug in deep. I was writing nonstop, gigging nonstop, still having to work to pay for things. And then the time came where it started to move into where I was a full-time musician for about 20 years. Lots of
That's
touring.
awesome.
You know, I transitioned from, I was a total rock musician as a kid, and then somewhere along the way, I really fell in love with roots music, country music, and made a transition in my mid 30s into that world. And everything changed at that point for me, because prior to that, it had been a struggle. I was, I'd get a management deal or some spec deal, but nothing that really stuck. And then when I moved into the world of country and roots music, that was when I started to have some minor success. I mean, it never went where I was hoping it would go. And got to be honest, I'm grateful it didn't, because my life now is so much better than anything I could have anticipated back then.
That's
Truly.
awesome, man. That's really good to hear. I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So you're working the Sunset Strip like in the heyday, right? You have this hair metal band, or is that
Totally.
offensive? Can I say hair metal, or is it glam, or does it matter?
Nah, no. I mean, it was like we fit right in with the bands like Rat and Warrant and Poison and
Definitely, yeah, man. I
like
dig
it
them.
was more
They're
about
cool.
looking good than being good.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys were playing like the Whiskey A Go Go, the Roxy, places like that. That's
Sure.
awesome, man. So I know you got to have some wild stories from that time. Maybe you could just share just one with us. Maybe your least risque story or your most. I mean, I'm down for that too.
It's it was. I mean, it's funny. I'm glad I lived through that time, to not only to experience it, but I mean to actually live through it, because I did a lot of stuff back then that I'm shocked that I'm actually alive today. I mean, cocaine was everywhere, so everybody was doing blow. It was a given. And it was always funny, because you'd have 50 people at a party, 20 of them would disappear into the bathroom. Like, we all know what you're doing, because we're all doing the same thing, and
Yeah.
and
But that was the culture. That was the
it
culture,
just
man.
was, man. I mean, everyone was doing it. It was, you got to remember, this is before there was AIDS. So, completely, I mean, to have, God, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but I mean, well, you guys can cut it out if I go too far.
Yeah, you're fine.
But I mean, I think back then there was a club that happened once a week called the Cat Club, at a warehouse, where they turned it into a full club once a week. And I can't tell you how many times you'd go in, you'd be partying, having fun. And that's why I say, like, I'm grateful that I lived through that time, because I did get to experience it, and it was fun, dude. I mean, I have friends, a couple friends, that are still bummed that those days ever went away. I wouldn't want to go back to it. And I'm glad I lived through it, because it was pretty fun stuff,
Yeah, man. And you were living that rock star lifestyle, and you were working hard to do it, which is commendable. Some people might, knock you for the partying and stuff, but being a musician's hard, man. Especially when you're trying to, make a record deal and, just make these connections and network. I mean, I can only imagine. And it was probably extremely competitive at that time.
Absolutely. I mean, it really is. It still is, but it's a one in a million. You have your bands that pop out and become household names, and then you got millions of other bands that are never going to get there. Some of them might even be qualified to get there. They might be good enough, but luck and timing is a massive part of that business. And the thing my mom and dad both, but really my dad, instilled in me is a work ethic. And I'm so grateful for that, because while I was partying back then, I was also working during the day, so I didn't sleep a lot of hours. I had a lot of friends that had different settings where they could sleep until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, roll out of bed, go party like rock stars, and then sleep in all day. I didn't have that luxury, man. I still had to get up and go to work. Then the only way songs were getting written is if someone was going to write them. I was the guy writing for my band. And so it was, it's that work ethic played itself out back then. And ultimately, when I did get to the point where I started having record deals and publishing deals when I was in the country world, it was a shit ton of work, man. I mean,
Well, that brings up an interesting question because, I've read about musicians and just the music industry in general, and I've heard, uh, I've heard other people in the industry say that, there's some nefarious things that go on, especially with like when you start talking about these record deals and signing contracts and things like that.
yeah.
Is that something that you learned about early on, or once you transitioned to country, did you learn more? And has it helped you with your business now?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that is, I don't know how much it's helped me more. It's more that I'm grateful that I operate in the world that I do, because the entertainment business as a whole doesn't have a lot of integrity in it, in my opinion, or at least in my experience. So like as an example, our in the country world, my first record deal with my bands, I had a band called Stone Honey. Um, we got a deal with this massive producer. He's one of the most successful producers of all time. His deal was being licensed through Sony, but it was funded by a hedge fund. It was kind of it was a creative deal that he was trying to work. But at the time, we had a $5 billion hedge fund standing behind us. We had Sony that was going to distribute the record. And we had this guy, Rick Wake. And Rick was known for pop music. Like his first artist was Taylor Dane. And then he went on to bring us Mariah Carey and Celine Dion.
Wow.
He brought Shakira up when she was just a Mexican artist, and he brought her into the English speaking world, and
Right.
on it goes. I mean, the soundtrack for the movie Chicago. Rick's really,
Okay.
if you ever look up Rick Wake, he's one of the most successful producers of all time. We had this really great creative deal with him, and when it came time, when we got all the fun stuff done, like making the album and all the promo materials, when it was time to go to work, nobody did anything. And then we got stuck. It took us almost 2 years to get out of that deal.
Wow.
And it was a painful time, because we were out, we still had to pay the bills, man. So we were out gigging nonstop. We couldn't sell albums because we were signed to this deal. We couldn't even make merch and sell merch because we were in this deal. So it was just horrific. We got out of that and we ended up in this deal with a company down in Austin, Texas. We moved to Austin. We were touring, predominantly like the South, Southeast, and Midwest of the country. And again, it's one of those stories where we were busting our asses, really working, and they didn't do what they said they were going to do. And, that was where the end of the music business happened for me. My last year on the road, I'll tell you, I was 45 years old. I did 200 dates that year, 200 shows.
Holy hell.
And after having to pay managers and agents and all the different people, I netted 25 grand for my last year on the road at 45 years old.
That's
And
crazy for a lifetime of work.
I can't do this anymore, and my passion was gone. I still love music as much as I ever did, but my drive to want to try to push that any longer, I was done. I was over it.
I think a lot of people, when they think about people in the entertainment industry or people that they perceive to be successful, right? It's easy to just write it off like, oh, they're just some rich rock star or they're some rich musician. But all the stories that I hear are similar to that, right? Like these artists sacrificing so much of themselves and then not reaping even a fraction of the benefit that they should. So I can understand.
Yeah.
Is that what was the impetus for this transition to what you're doing now?
It was, and the truth is, because like I said earlier, I didn't have a backup plan. I never finished college. I didn't have a degree. I had no work experience whatsoever other than I could play guitar, I could sing a song, and I could write a song, I really didn't have any other skill set. And so I called my younger brother who, this building that I operate out of at the time was his. My younger brother makes a lot of money in the insurance world. And he's a passionate car guy, hardcore enthusiast, including motorsports. And I called him up and I said, hey man, do you have any kind of job for me? you know, and I was hoping he would teach me how to be a broker so I could make money like he does. He laughed at me and he said, Shawn, you're way too sensitive. My industry would eat you alive and you'd be dead inside of a year, which he's right, because I've watched him work and like I could never do what they do. But what he did was he said, why don't you go over to the shop, take care of my cars. He had, at the time, he had about, I think it was 12 or 13 cars. He said, maybe you can use some of your entertainment contacts and get cars placed in films and television shows and help to offset the cost of my shop. So I did. I started doing picture car work. We got cars in Fast and Furious movies, Need for Speed.
Very cool.
Bunch of other ones, you know. And so I worked for him, and it was a, you know, for lack of a better way to say it, I was really my brother's bitch. It was a total flunky job. I was getting paid $3,000 a month. There was a guarantee that I would never get a raise because it really didn't make sense for him to even be paying me. And, you know, but what I did, again, my dad instilled this work ethic in me. So a lot of days there was not much to do working for my brother. So I started seeking out all the local builders in Southern California, the guys that had real name recognition, like Steve Strope from Pure Vision Design,
Definitely.
and Jason, Timeless Customs, and you know, just a bunch of other builders. And I started to go out and making friends with these guys, and that's all. I just started networking like crazy, going out to events. I'd take my brother's cars out to shows. He owned some pretty radical cars at the time. Like he owned Producer Mustang from the Ring Brothers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He owned a car that was used at the end of Fast and Furious 6, a bitchin' 70 CUDA that and then they created stunt doubles for it, and that ended up being the Letty car in Fast and Furious.
That like it's a gunmetal one.
Yeah, well, it's black. It's black with gunmetal wheels, and that car was built by Dave Salvaggio, who later went on to start Speedcore.
Yeah.
And so I was just building all these relationships, again, really not knowing what I was doing. There was no plan in play. It was just, I felt like I had a whole new life. I was over the music world, and all my passion for the automotive space was now playing out, where I was hanging out with all these guys, and I was becoming friends with some heavy hitters. Like there's a well-known collector named Bruce Meyer.
I know the name.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce is, here's how connected Bruce is. When I asked him for a contact at Ford, I wanted to try to get one of my buddy's cars in the Ford booth at SEMA a few years back. And he put together an email, and at the top of the email was Edsel Ford, Henry, whatever number it was. I was like, Bruce, I was just trying to get a contact regarding SEMA. I didn't need you to go directly to Edsel.
Yeah.
But so all these relationships, and then one thing led to another, and my brother decided to downsize his collection, start putting more of his focus on motorsports. So he was looking at getting rid of this building, and I said, what do you say, let me take over the building from you, put storage lifts in here, and let me turn it into a business, because I get people asking all the time if we have any room in there to park their cars. And so that was what gave birth to AutotopiaLA and the storage business and the concierge aspect of it.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So I want to do a little bit of a deeper dive into that whole concierge part. But when you started designing everything, and you already had this clientele base that was kind of ready to go, like, hey, I'm looking for storage. What did you, were there other businesses like this? Did you look at like, oh, okay, this is kind of how it's done. I need these kind of lifts. This is how many we can fit in here. What was that process like?
Yeah, when I decided to do this, my part of what pushed it was my friend Chris, who owns a car a lot of people know about called Vicious Mustang.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
My buddy Chris was the one that pushed me to actually do it. And we talk about the coolest guy in the world. Him and his wife, initially they were going to partner with me on the business. And then he said, dude, I don't want to be part of a business. I've been retired for a number of years now. Why don't we just loan you the money to start the business? So I knew I had the funding to start the business, and I wanted to see, because I had never been to any storage facilities before. I'd been to private collections, but I had never been to a storage facility. So I sought sought out, there's only a handful of them in Los Angeles. I sought them out. I was probably a little fraudulent in my approach. I called up and said, I'm looking for storage. I have a Ford GT, and then I borrowed my brother's Ford GT, and I drove all these different places. I just wanted to see what they were doing, you know? And I remember coming back here going, well, we kicked the shit out of what these guys all do, in my opinion, because the place was already operating on a private level. And the only company out there that I thought did it at the level that we could do it it's a place called Auto Concierge over in West LA. And I became good friends with Scott Elrod, the owner of the place. We refer each other business all the time. And I actually used him as a consultant to help me start the business, because he'd already been in business for 7 or 8 years at the time. His facility is, I mean, like mind-boggling. If I ever get garage envy, it's when I go to Scott's. Wow, your place is really rad, dude.
That's saying something, yeah.
But that's how it all started. I wanted to go see other places. I looked at them. I realized if we kept operating like as if we were a private facility, but offered that level of care and service to outside clients, I thought we could do well with it. And it has. It's done really well, you know.
So what type of lifts do you guys have? Are they like those crazy rotating ones that they have in other countries? I see, like, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's a whole, I would love to automate at some point, but my facility is not quite as large as that. I have the total size of the building is 8,200 square feet. About roughly about 12 or 1,400 feet is taken up with my lounge space and the restroom facility. So the warehouse is about 7,000 feet. I was able to put in, what do I have? 13 or 14 lifts. I used BenPack because that's what Scott Elrod uses at his place, and Leno has a couple of those at his place. And I figured if they were good enough for those guys, they'd be good enough for me, you know.
Definitely. And you guys are in the actual facility is in Burbank, right?
Yeah. I'm right. I'm actually right down the street from where Leno's at. I'm a block away from Jay.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. It's as I'm a big Jay Leno fan, not the Tonight Show comedian Jay Leno, which great. You know what I mean? He's awesome. But
sure,
as a car enthusiast, as a true enthusiast, he's the best, man. Every single day of my life, if I'm here at my shop, I smoke, and typically I go out in front and have a cigarette. And most times at some point of the day, I'll see Jay go cruising by. He waves, anything from, you know, you'll see him in one of his steamers cruising by. And then an hour later, you'll see him in a P1. And an hour after that, you'll see him on his jet bike. You know, I mean,
well, man, we're all just big kids, right? And if you hit the lotto and you had that many cars, that's what I do all day too.
Right? Including a McLaren F1. I mean,
it's insane, man. His collection is nuts.
It's like nothing you've ever seen, including the building itself with all the artwork and everything, you know.
That reminds me. So you cater to some pretty high profile clients, and you've had some insane builds, you know, come into your facility. What's one that sticks out in your mind as like, wow, I can't believe this car's here right now?
There's been a good handful. I mean, we're allowed to talk about it now. At the time, I wasn't allowed. I was asked by the family to always keep it quiet. But my brother Eric, who this place used to be his best friend in the world was Roger Rodas. Roger was the one driving when him and Paul Walker died. Paul was a good friend of my brother's as well. So after the accident, all of Paul's cars came here to the shop, and then they lived here for little over 6 years before being sold last year at Barrett Jackson. So it was always and some of Roger's cars were still here at that point. They've all since been sold, but that was always a big one for me, you know, to have Paul's cars here, Roger's cars here. It was like I had, you know, it was like they were still here with us, kind of in a way. And then, I mean, I've got a lot of, you know, and I always keep their names quiet, but I have a lot of celebrities that keep cars here at the shop. Probably a couple of my favorite builds that typically live here. Vicious is usually here. Unfortunately, it got hit recently, and so it's yeah, not bad enough to, it's nothing structural or mechanical. It's all cosmetic, but you know, on $1 million build, the cosmetic element is it's going to be close to $100,000 in work to get that car back to where it was.
Well, I know, obviously, when you have that kind of access to whatever vehicle you want because you're wealthy and famous or whatever, these celebrity clients that you have, yeah, they're gonna have cool stuff. But I think recently I just started seeing like a lot more celebrities with like builder cars, notably like Kevin Hart. He was in the news a while ago for that wreck, but now he's showing up at like quarantine crews with like these gnarly Camaros and just. Are you is that something that you're seeing? Is that a trend that you're seeing, like more of these builder cars in the hands of celebrities?
More and more, yeah. And it's funny, you mentioned Kevin. I'm good friends with a guy named Chris Mills. Chris was out at the quarantine cruise, this last one. Chris is a former NBA player. Great guy. I've known Chris for about four or 5 years now. We've become pretty good friends. He's really good buddies with Kevin. Kevin's one of his best pals in the world. Chris called me last year and said, "Hey, do you know of any really hot, kick-ass custom builds for sale? Because my friend Kevin," and he didn't say Kevin Hart, he just said, "My friend Kevin's looking for a couple of cars." And I said, "Yeah, I know of a couple of them, and they haven't gone on the market yet, but they're going to. If you want, I'll send you a couple of pictures and some general info, and I can help line it up if he wants to buy them." And I said, "I'm warning you now, they're big dollar cars, so he's got to have a deep pocket, And I showed him the Cuda from Speedcore, which Kevin saw a couple pictures and said, "I want it." And so he bought that car from Speedcore. It was
loved that car, man.
Wonderful car. Wonderful car.
Anything that comes out of Speedcore is like you're in for a treat. I mean, what's the all carbon Charger that they made? What's the name of it? Evolution. I love that car.
That car is amazing. I've gotten to drive that car twice, and it is just spectacular, man. I mean, I've driven a lot of the Speedcore cars, and it's one of the best builds they've ever done, in my opinion. I mean, they're these guys, like, I love their approach that they've never gotten complacent with what they do. So like one of their well-known cars is Tantrum, which is a Charger where it's just the front clip that's all carbon. And that's the one that has the Mercury motor in it.
Love that car too.
That's an amazing car, but that was the first Speedcore car ever built. When you compare that one to Evolution, it's two completely different cars. And I love Tantrum for, I mean, just the raw power alone of that car. I've done burnouts in that car, not purposely, but burnouts.
Yeah, sure, Sean.
Yeah. No. Like, I've done burnouts on purpose, but I mean, shifting it from second to third gear at about 4,300 RPMs, at around 100 miles an hour, and the rear tires spin on it. It's a beast of a car. But you compare that to Evolution, and they're completely different. Evolution is so much more refined of a build. The chassis, the suspension, everything about it, that is just a knockout. I mean, those guys build such incredible vehicles, man.
I remember the first time I saw it, I was blown away. Just the attention to detail in the carbon weave pattern, going from panel to panel and matching, just being consistent over the entire body of the car. It's insane.
And their carbon isn't just the decorative stuff. There's guys that do the thin layup to make it look like it's a carbon car. They actually do structural carbon. So inner doors are carbon. They're doing carbon on the level of someone like Pagani or Koenigsegg. Their carbon work is spectacular, and they do it all in house. They have an autoclave in house, so it's all pre-preg autoclave. Like, it's done right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but like every panel on that car except for the floor is carbon, right?
Correct. Everything.
That's insane, dude.
Even the roof.
That's insane.
And it's all structural, and it's all made to work, not just to look good. And like that car that Kevin had, that you know, it was unfortunate what happened. I mean, his friend drove it.
Yeah.
Didn't know how to deal with the level of power. If I remember correctly, that car was making around 800 horsepower. The guy didn't know how to deal with it, got out of control. Luckily enough, they all walked away from it. There was a lot of controversy about that car, about it should have been caged. Well, okay, yeah, it should have been caged, but then what happens to your head when your head hits the cage without a helmet on?
Yeah, I think a lot of those that speculation was coming from people who don't race cars, don't understand, you know, exactly what you're saying. Like
Yep.
that would be more dangerous if you weren't wearing a helmet. So
I agree. Same thing with harnesses. You know, how come it didn't have harnesses? Well, if you have harnesses and if you're properly harnessed in without a Hans device and you get impacted by something that stops you quickly, how's your neck going to do with that? You know, how's your
Right.
back going to do? So it's I go back and forth on those, but I feel like if you're going to harness in, you should probably have a Hans device. If you're going to be caged, if your cage is tucked away far enough that you're not going to impact your head, okay, I can go with that. But if it's going to be like a typical cage in a race car, you better have a helmet on, or else you're going to, you know, if something happens, your
Well,
head's not going to fare well.
let's be honest. I mean, and this is not exactly apples to apples because of like the crash test ratings of modern cars. But you can go, if you got the pockets, you can go buy a red eye that makes 800 horsepower and it doesn't have a cage.
That's
So
right. That's right. And that car was structurally sound. There was no, I mean, it's actually proof how structurally sound it was that it crashed. You can tell it was moving at a pretty good clip. I saw the tire marks, you know, so I know they were smoking tires on that thing all the way until it made its turn off the road. And it went off the road, through a fence, down a ravine, clipped a tree. That's why the roof caved on it like it did. But 3 people made it out of that car, just with minor injuries, you know?
yeah.
So it's
Well, you know, I know that I'm a huge Kevin Hart fan, so I know that as well as you know, pretty much everybody else was relieved when he walked away from it, and everybody walked away from it. But
Yep.
but that brings me back to my original question, which was about celebrities and you know, this trend. Um, do you also see parallels between like people in the entertainment industry and like hot rodders? Are they like, do they run in the same circles? Is there some overlap?
I'm starting to see more of it. I mean, I think Kevin's probably the most notable one right now, because that guy's really gotten obsessed with muscle cars over the last couple years. He's owned a lot of modern luxury brand cars, Ferrari and stuff like that. His friend Chris Mills and his company built him you know, I mean, it's not technically an Eleanor car, but it looks like an Eleanor. It's a black one. That was, as far as I know, that was Kevin's first muscle car. And then he got the CUDA. I got him that at the last cruise, he actually had out the twin turbo 69 Camaro that Timeless Customs built. That
Dude,
used to be
I
my
love
friend.
that car.
It's amazing, dude. That car used to be my friend Mike's. Mike Kavanaugh owns a couple of Timeless Customs cars, and I got that one for Kevin as well. You know, and he's now, it's funny, like there was these rumors about him suing Speedcore. Not true at all. He's building 2 cars with Speedcore right now. He's also, you know, building cars with a couple of other builders. As he told me, rather than giving one builder all the love, Kevin's finding builders that he really respects. I mean, he walks around and looks at cars. When he's out at those events, he gets bombarded with people because he's Kevin Hart, the superstar. But for him, he's Kevin Hart, the guy that's super passionate about cars. So he's walking around looking and learning and asking questions.
100%, man. I saw him and I was like kind of just watching him from afar, and that's exactly what he was doing. I mean, I could see he was interacting with fans and stuff, but he was also like, I could see him making mental notes on things that he liked, and he was just like, you know, telling some of his entourage or whoever was with him, like, hey man, I really like that, you know. So that's cool. He's a car guy's car guy.
Yep. And I see more of that. I mean, there's not, I don't see a ton of it in the custom world with the overlap of entertainment people, but there's some for sure. You know, I mean, you've got guys like, there's a great guitar player named Kenny Wayne Shepherd who,
Yeah, hell yeah.
Kenny's been around forever. That guy's hardcore into muscle cars. He's big time into muscle cars. You know, I've got guys that keep cars here with me, one of which, you know, I'm not going to mention his name because just out of respect for him, you know, but like, he's a household name. You know, he's an actor, comedian, whatever. He's, you know, one of the funniest people you could ever see. And he's gotten super obsessed lately. And so he just bought his first muscle car. It's an all original, you know, it's not a custom, but it's also one of the rarest muscle cars on the planet. I mean, there was only 600 of them ever produced. Of the 600 produced, this one's the lowest mileage one in the world. It only has 3,500 original miles from 1969. And it's a car he purchased recently from Mecum. I had a few things done to it, and he comes over and he enjoys driving the car.
What kind of car?
It's a Dodge Dart GT Sport.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So it came originally with a 440.
Yeah.
And this car, honestly, it's got 3,500 original miles. I just got him a new set of wheels and tires because it had the original tires that were horribly flat spotted. So it was not fun to drive, and it scared him because he took off and it did a burnout, and then he pulled up to a stoplight and it skid. And I told him, yeah, you're on 50-year-old bias ply tires. So we got him a new set of radials on there and a OEM replacement wheel that looks exactly as the original.
So Shawn, that's you've established this high-end clientele. You're in a great location. You know, you're making all the right moves. And now you're describing part of your concierge service where you can make recommendations and for your customers and put them in contact with people who can build for them. Was that something that you envisioned from the very beginning that you wanted to do, or was that something that kind of developed as you went along?
No, I knew I was going to do some of that. I didn't know to what extent, but based on the model that I saw at my friend Scott Elrod's place, Auto Concierge, I knew I needed to do the same thing because the storage revenues are only going to generate so much money. There is a ceiling here, you know, there's a cap to how many cars I can put. 60 cars in my place. Thanks, bro. I can only put 60 cars in the place. So, you know, I had to find additional ways to generate revenues. And I'm a service-based guy. So it's a great thing for me to do something where I feel good about doing it because I know I'm taking care of somebody, and at the same time, I'm generating money doing it.
So, I mean, so what services do you currently offer? Obviously the storage, but beyond that, what can, you know, someone who's looking at your services, what can they expect?
Anything that's needed, I can handle it.
Very
I mean,
cool.
like, and it really is. It's funny when I was putting my website together originally. You know, I went into the concierge services and I started to put together a list of things like I can handle DMV related things. I can handle smog checks, even on cars that, you know, might not necessarily pass. You know, and detailing. I have a detailer that's worked with me. He's independent. You know, he's got his own company, but he's worked with me for 8 years now, and he's become one of my best friends. So it was things like that. And then I would get people that would ask a question. Hey, can you handle shipping my car to Dubai? Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I can do that. No problem. Oh shit. What do I do? You know, and then I make a few phone calls because of just the depth of relationships I have in this industry now. And so I really can handle whatever it might be, global shipping, local shipping, you know, marketing cars, which is something that I've gotten more into. Helping to buy and sell cars is something I do.
Oh, very cool.
Clients.
Are you still doing like, you know, movie placement and things like that?
No, I hate doing that. The reason I hate doing that is because, and I understand from a production side, for them, it may as well be a lampshade. They just need it to decorate the set, get their shot, and move on. But when you pull onto set in a $300,000 one-of-one custom car, and you watch Grips and all these guys ripping around with their tool belts and stuff, I mean,
yeah,
you know, so I got out of that a few years back. I just started telling everybody that called. The only person I say yes to is my neighbor, Dennis McCarthy. Dennis is the guy that he's done all the Fast and Furious cars since Tokyo Drift. He does Marvels. He did the most recent Batmobile, the one that came after the Tumbler.
Okay.
And on it goes with Dennis. I mean, he's at the top of the food chain for custom, for picture cars.
Right.
And Dennis is the one guy I can't say no to because he's a great buddy. He's a great neighbor. We do favors for each other all the time. So when he says, "Hey, can we get, you know, that G squared? Can I use it for SWAT coming up or whatever?" I'm always like, yeah. And I hate it because then I have to go on set, which is always fun. For the first 20 minutes, it's great. It's like, rad, there's craft services. I can eat anything I want. There's so-and-so celebrity. Like, this is bitching. And then 20 minutes later, you're like, wow. So I'm just going to sit here for the next 8 hours straight and make sure nobody does something stupid with that car. It's just not fun, you know?
Right. I hear you.
It's not.
Yeah, you'd rather hang out in your cool clubhouse, dude. I dig it.
With the cool people I know and go
yeah,
do
for sure.
stuff.
So I'm curious, how does that work? Like a client approaches you, is it like a month by month basis? Do they sign a year contract with you? How does that process work without getting too into the weeds in your business?
Yeah. You know what? I do everyone month to month, even people that have been with me for years. Cause I never want anyone to feel like they're locked in. If they're not happy with my service, give me a 30-day notice, take your car, bye. And same from my side, you know, I don't want to be locked into some jackass client. Luckily let's see, August coming up next month or 2 months from now will be 4 years since it went from a private place to being a business. And in the 4 years, I've only had one jackass client.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, so how does it? So let's say a client has their vehicle stored with you. They
Yeah.
come in, you know, they're getting a cup of coffee or something, maybe hanging out by the pool table. They say, "Oh yeah, you know, I want to pick up my car." Do you guys have an employee that goes and gets the car and brings it to them, like almost like valet, or are they free to go and get it themselves? How does that work?
Oh no, nobody moves cars in the garage except for me, Kyle's here right now. I call him my assistant for lack of better words. He's become a really close friend of mine, and he also does all the editing on our YouTube channel.
Oh, cool.
So it would either be me, Kyle, or my detailer, Eric, and that's it. Only three of us that ever move vehicles in and out of the shop. Even when a client pulls up, I have them stop out at my back door. I bring the car in.
Very cool.
Liability, you know,
Yeah, of course.
We have a zero policy here. Like, you are not allowed to screw up. We're never in a hurry. If I had a client say, "Hey, I need my car out right away," cool. It's on a lift at the back of the shop. It's going to take me an hour. Come in an hour, you know?
Right. Well, so you touched on something just a moment ago, and that's your YouTube video, your YouTube channel rather. And I know that's been huge for you. How and when did that happen? When you're in the throes of starting your business, and you say, "Man, we got all these really cool cars. We should do some videos on them." How'd that work out?
Yeah, I was at an event a few years back, and I was up in the green room part because I had a bunch of cars there at the event. It was called AutoCon at LA Convention Center. And I'm looking down from the green room. I'm looking down at this massive line of people waiting hours, literally waiting hours to get pictures, autographs, whatever with this guy. And I had no idea who he was. So there was a couple of Asian young guys, mid-20s in the green room with me. And I asked if they knew who it was. And they said, "Yeah, that's TJ Hunt." I'm like, "Cool. Who's TJ Hunt?" I had never heard of him at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the guy I was talking to, his name's Mike. Mike has a YouTube channel called Smurf and WRX.
Okay.
And Mike started telling me about how his channel at the time had a few 100,000 subscribers and he was making money from it. And I was shocked when he told me the money he was making. I was like, "Wait, tell me more." And, so one thing led to another. Mike ended up coming over here to my shop. We did a walk around of the shop. We went over to Dennis's and saw a bunch of the Fast and Furious cars being made for, I think that was for Furious 7 at the time, or I don't know, 7 or 8. And then we came back here and he said, dude, just that walk around alone, he said, you got 3 months worth of content right there. And so the original idea was Mike was going to partner with me. We were going to shoot everything and then give Mike all the content, and him and his crew were going to do all the editing, and we were going to be partners. Gratefully, Mike dropped the ball on me, which was good. I mean, truly, it was a great thing because it empowered us to figure out how to do it ourselves. So my pal Paul, who's still a partner with me on the channel, Paul was going to be the shooter, and then I was going to have to figure out somebody to do editing for me. I figured, I got all these entertainment buddies that are editors. I'll get someone. Well, ultimately, nobody stepped up. So, you know, at the time, Paul went out, he would shoot everything, and then I would bring the footage back. And one day I sat down and said, time to learn how to edit, man. And so I bought Premiere Pro, did all the tutorials, went to YouTube and went, how do you this? How do you this? How do you this? And I asked all these questions, and obviously YouTube's bottomless with how-tos.
Yeah.
And so the first year of the channel, it was Paul and I shooting and me editing everything. And it's
how did you guys? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it was the best thing that could have happened, because as the host of the channel, having to edit myself was great, because I realized at that point how often I said, how often there was blank spaces, how often I was doing things that just did not work on camera.
I hate watching myself. Yeah, for that exact reason.
But it was great to have to edit myself, because it taught me a lot about hosting. And I think anyone that's ever going to be in front of the camera, they should be forced to either edit or sit with the editor to understand how much work goes into editing and how much work could be minimized by just being a good host.
I agree 100%. You know, you mentioned just a moment ago that was it the LA Auto Show?
This one was called AutoCon, the one that I was at. It was a smaller event. They just took up one hall at the convention center, put on by a group of young guys that they were predominantly in the JDM world. And my involvement with them was they wanted to do a whole section of muscle cars. So they hit me up and said, hey, could you get a couple cars? And I think we got, with me, my friend Ken, who runs Classics Daily and Muscle Kings.
Yeah, I know Ken. Nice guy.
Yeah, Ken's great, man. Between Ken and I, we got, I can't remember, 12, 15 muscle cars out there. But I mean, like, banger muscle cars, you know. It just was there. I think I had Tantrum on that one. There was a bunch of really rad cars. Corn-fed Camaro was a car that showed up.
So once you started like getting into the editing and learning more about how to do it, was it before or after that you conceptualized how you were going to put together your YouTube channel, like the format and how you're going to drive these cars, and how did that come to be?
Man, we just started shooting, and when I say we didn't have a clue, I mean, we truly did not have a clue of what we were doing. We would make stuff up. Oh, I know. Let's pretend like we're going to go do this. And we would do, because we just didn't know what we were doing.
Right.
And then it was just a stroke of luck, was because I would also, while I was putting up videos, I was reading the comments. Especially back then, it was super easy. You'd pop up a video and you'd get like 14 comments. I could read all 14 comments. Now it's getting to the point where we're getting thousands per video, and I do my best. I still put in, believe it or not, I put in 3 or 4 hours a day, 7 days a week, responding to comments on YouTube. I can never get caught up to all of them, but I do my best to try to keep up with them. But it was Tantrum. Tantrum was the car we shot, and again, we were just trying to figure stuff out. That car, I knew so much about it, so I said, hey, Paul, I got an idea. I'm going to do a walk around of the car. I'm going to talk about every element of this build, and then you shoot beauty shots of it. And then what I'll do is, while I'm talking, I'll use my voice as just a voiceover. And when I'm talking about the engine, transmission, suspension, interior, all the different elements, we'll show beauty shots rather than showing my mug talking about the car, you know? And And then we'll go for a drive. We'll put in-car cameras. We'll catch some rolling shots. And that video went ballistic. I can't even remember what the numbers were, but it was like 1,000% engagement on that video. And I went, oh wow, we just found something. This should be our format. And that was the beginning of the format that we still run. It's been refined since then. It's been updated when Kyle stepped in and took over editing. Kyle's a 20-year-old. He just turned 20. So he's a young.
Happy birthday, Kyle.
Yeah. Did you hear that, Kyle? You just got a happy birthday.
Oh, thanks, man.
But Kyle's a young, smart, creative kid that went, hey, I got an idea. Hey, I got an idea. Hey, I got an idea. So our format has continued to refine and grow. And we've never, like I said about SpeedCore, we've never got complacent. We've never gone, this is what we do. This is how we do it. And we're never going to change. We're never going to grow. We're never going to evolve. So I love it. Like he's sitting here right now. You know, he's been here at the shop working with me this morning. Now he's sitting at his computer. Let's see if I can. Yeah, there's Kyle.
Hey, what's up,
there
Kyle?
working away.
That's awesome, man.
By the way, that race suit you see in the background, that's the last race suit Paul Walker ever wore. I don't know if
I'm sorry, I lost you there for a second, Shawn. You said it's the last what?
That race suit is the last race suit that Paul Walker ever wore. That's hanging on.
Oh
the
wow.
wall. That was Paul's from the 25 hours at Thunder Hill.
That's awesome, man. That
Yeah.
Wow. If it wasn't there, it should be in the Smithsonian. That's epic.
Yeah. So that's kind of the YouTube channel, dude. And it's been 100% organic. You know, we didn't know that Mike, who I told you, Smurf and WRX, who was kind of the inspiration to start the channel. Mike told me, and I say this because anyone that wants to start a YouTube channel, I think you should take this to heart. He said, in my opinion, Shawn, if you put a charismatic personality in front of the camera and you give good, consistent content, you have the ability to organically grow. And I always took that 100% to heart. The other thing he said was, it's going to be a full-time job. You just got to be prepared that while you're working your full-time job running your business, creating a YouTube channel is a full-time job in itself. And it is. I put in 100 hours a week between my shop and the channel.
Wow.
And, you know, gratefully, most of what I do is fun.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
no, I don't think anyone can question your work ethic, man. You've built a hell of a business there, and you're providing a service to the high-end auto enthusiasts in the LA area. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I am curious though. So you have, well, I don't want to speculate, but I imagine that you have a busy season. And is that around like trade shows like the LA Auto Show and things like that?
Yeah, especially, I mean, SEMA's a big one for me because I have builder friends from actually at this point around the world that as SEMA's starting to happen, you know, when we're about a month out, I have a ton of cars that end up coming in here from all over the world. One of which came in last year. It's a 1970 Dodge Challenger. It's called Havoc.
Oh yeah, I know that car.
Yeah,
that's a bad one.
Exceptional car. Havoc came in, and you can only imagine. You know, Rides by Cam is owned by a guy named Rob. The company's based in Australia, so the nerve-wracking stress that poor Rob has to go to when he puts that car in a container and sends it out on the sea for 4 weeks. So, you know, I'm there with my transpo guy at the docks in Long Beach, pulling that car out of a container. We're the only two people authorized to touch that car, getting it off the container, getting it to my shop, having my detailer do a cleanup on it to make sure the car's flawless, because of all booths, it was unveiled in the McGuire's booth. It can't have.
Oh yeah.
It cannot have a blemish. And the SpeedCore guys are based out in Wisconsin. They typically bring 5 to 8 cars every year to SEMA. They come here, And the difficulty that I'm faced with at that time of year is not only organizing and orchestrating all the cars being brought in, but that there's no photos, there's no videos, these are all cars that are about to get their big reveal at SEMA.
Right. Yeah.
They cannot be seen. They just flat out, it can't be oops, sorry, a shot showed up of your car before it got its reveal.
Yeah. So that actually, that reminds me of a question that I wanted to ask you. Have there been any cars that have come through that you really wanted to shoot a video with, but the owner said no?
Oh yeah.
And what's the most common reason that they give you?
Well, one would be, I haven't had any of their cars lately, but multiple times I've had Singer Porsches in here. And, Singer they're very, very strict about their cars. When they leave their shop before an owner is able to take delivery of them, nobody's allowed to see that car. So even in my shop, the car stays undercover. I mean, I had friends ask, like, come on, dude, let me see the car. No.
Wow.
No. I mean, like good, close buddies of mine, that it's just,
So,
no, they're not allowed to be seen before the owner sees the car, just out of respect to the owner,
I'm a muscle car guy through and through. I don't know a whole lot about Porsches. Singer Porsche, it sounds like that's like a hand-built custom kind of house.
Oh man, you, my friend, need to look up Singer Porsche.
Okay.
What Singer did, oh my God, I'm obsessed with Singer Porsche. They are, so what they do is they take a 964 Porsche, and then they, as they even put in their information, they reimagine the car. So it still stays an air-cooled Porsche. For anybody that's untrained would see a Singer Porsche drive by and go, ooh, that's a really pretty old 911. But when you dig into what they've done, I mean, their cars range, typically somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000. They,
Oof.
it's
Jeez,
the
that's
finest,
awesome.
it's the finest interior you will ever see on a car. I mean, their interiors are just stunning. Rob, the guy that started the company, I love it. There's an old picture. I'm so obsessed. I have their coffee table book sitting right here on my coffee table. Like, I absolutely love what they do. But there's, in the original warehouse, in spray paint, it looks like crap on the wall. It says everything matters. And his approach is every single detail. I mean, down to the most minute detail. They do not let anything slide by. So yeah, dude, I highly recommend.
I'll check them out.
Like you said, because I'm a total muscle car guy too. But because I grew up in a world of Porsche around my dad and my uncle, I have a real obsession with Porsche, and they are the finest. It's they're the only car they're the only company in the world that does what they do with Porsche, and they're allowed to leave the Porsche emblem on the car.
Oh,
like
wow.
If you look at
licensed by Porsche, yeah.
Yeah, like if you look at Roof, they're called, German-based company. Roof is very well known for what they've done with Porsche for decades, and they're not allowed to be called a Roof Porsche. It's a Roof.
Interesting.
Yeah, Singer's the only company in the world that's been allowed, unless I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm sure somebody in the comments will let me know. But they're the only company in the world that's allowed to keep the Porsche badge and the Porsche emblem on the car and call it a Singer Porsche.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely look into it. To your point, I mean, yeah, I love muscle cars. That's what aligns with my interests and, the magazine that I run.
Yeah.
But I have a deep appreciation for quality craftsmanship, man. I love lowriders for that reason. I mean,
Totally.
You look under the car and it's all painted and chrome. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I wouldn't drive it, but that's awesome.
No, I'm the same, dude. I'm just a car guy, man. I really do have. I mean, my first place I go to is muscle cars that are properly built. Like, I like chassis built cars, where yeah, it looks like a 65 Mustang, but the only thing from, like on Vicious Mustang, the only thing left from 65 is the A-pillars and the VIN plate.
Yeah. So are you so you're like a pro touring guy. You dig pro touring builds?
Hard.
Okay.
Love them. I'm actually
cool.
about to, we're in the process of working out doing my first pro touring build. It would actually be an AutotopiaLA car, the channel.
Oh,
the
shit. Hell
channel.
yeah.
So we're hoping that the channel has enough strength at this point to pull off what I'm trying to pull off, which is, you know, probably a $250,000 build that'll cost, you know, like pretty close to nothing, other than a lot of work and a lot of exposure for the guy that builds the car.
Certainly.
Yeah,
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
it's gonna
Do you have
be
a vehicle in mind? A 70?
hell yeah, dude. I love them all, but my favorite muscle car is a second gen Camaro.
Oh, okay. A split bumper or a full bumper?
I like them both, but I really like the split bumper. So what I want to do in a perfect world, if I can do the build I want, it'll be a 70 or 71 Camaro split bumper. I want to do Detroit speed front and rear on it. I want to do, I don't want massive power. I love massive power if you just want to point straight and do burnouts, but I actually like when the road turns.
Right.
So, so I want it to be sitting around somewhere between 450 and 500 at the tires. So we're looking at, more than likely it would be an LSA motor with just to do a smaller pulley on it, and that should get us right about where we want to be power wise. Tremec 5-speed, super stripped. I want it to be modeled after a 70s Trans Am race car. So very raw. It won't be beautiful. It'll be pretty, but it'll be raw, you know, like
that's awesome.
Just a straight down front spoiler, rear spoiler, interior will be stripped down, mostly sheet metal with race seats. And
you are a man after my own heart, man. Actually, a project for the for Street Muscle magazine is my personal 68 Firebird. It's an original 400 car. It's LS powered now, but that's totally the theme that we're going with. 70s era Trans Am. Yeah. With the, you know, Mark Donahue, Sweet Savage, Jerry Titus, all those guys. Yeah. I love that era of car for sure.
Me too.
I dig it.
Man, it's funny. I've got a great model for this car too, because my friend Tommy races in modern Trans Am. He races a Camaro, and he owns some significant cars. Like, Tommy's my new hero these days. And when I say significant, I mean he owns a real 67 Cobra.
Oh wow.
A real one, like not a Super Performance or the others. He owns real, but he also owns, in 1970, Chaparral was brought in to Chevrolet to build their Camaro, their factory Camaro, to race in Trans Am. There was a couple of them created. There's only one left in existence, and it's the one that Jim Hall, who started Chaparral, it's the last car that Jim Hall ever raced. My friend Tommy owns that car.
That's insane. That's epic.
We got to shoot it for the channel recently. So that's
cool.
That's kind of the car color scheme. I'm not going with that, the white and blue factory Chevy. I don't want to do that. But that's the car we're kind of styling this car after.
I'm curious what you're going to do with the wheels, because in order to run a full-size brake setup, you're going to have to go larger with the wheels. Is that something that you're wanting to do?
Oh yeah, we're going to go with 18s. I want to more than likely do that same style mini light wheel.
Yeah, buddy.
It's just cool. I don't want to screw it up with, I mean, wheels and stance, in my opinion, make a car.
They make or break a car for sure, man.
They really do. And I don't want to screw it up by putting the wrong wheel on there.
Right.
I think I'm also a big fan of, I like one-piece wheels. I like forged monoblock wheels. I've had high-end, big dollar 3-piece wheels crack on me out on the track before.
Wow.
Wheels that were supposed to not crack. They were,
right.
I mean, I'm not going to mention the company name because everybody knows this company, and I don't want to badmouth them because they're nice people. But
you can tell us offline. That way I don't.
Yeah, you trip out. Like when I tell you the company, you'd be like, of course I know those guys. And it scared the shit out of me, you know? So it put me in the modality of any car that I'm ever going to drive hard. If it was a cruiser where it's all about just great look, I could go with a 3-piece wheel. But as far as a car that I'm going to go pound the shit out of, I want a 1-piece forged monoblock wheel. That's what I want.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So So you have plans on doing this build. You just mentioned that you have a really cool car that you guys have recently filmed. Oh yeah, that before we wrap up, I did want to ask you, how have things been since the shutdown? Has your business increased? Have you had a lot of people coming to you and be like, "Hey man, I got to store this car. I'm not driving it a lot right now," or has it been like the opposite, where people are just like, "I want my stuff close to me"?
No, it's actually, I feel lucky that I feel like I live in a little bit of a bubble over here, that when the quarantine hit, lot of people have been hurt by this economically, mentally, just being stuck in their houses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I feel really lucky in that my business has stayed pretty consistent. The concierge services have gone down a little bit because people haven't been as active. A lot of companies are shut down, so work's not able to get done on cars. But as far as the storage goes, I've had a couple new cars come in. Nobody's removed cars. Nobody's had to do any fire sales or anything like that. So that's remained fairly consistent. And then with the YouTube channel, we were concerned, like, how are we going to shoot, man? I mean, it's not like we're backlogged where we've got 6 months of content already shot. Hell, there's a lot of times where we're shooting on Sunday and that video is going live on Tuesday,
Yeah, man.
So at first people were a little apprehensive about shooting and social distancing and all that, but we kept finding people that were willing to shoot, that had the approach we did, which was, and I don't want this to sound like shit to anybody out there, but I've trusted my immune system to do its job, and so I haven't partaken in the whole. I just find it hard to believe, actually, that this thing can only fly 5 foot 11 inches. So if I'm 6 feet away from somebody, I'm safe, or that by putting on a cloth mask that doesn't do anything except for shove carbon dioxide back into my body. Anyway, whatever. I'm not going to go off on this one.
Yeah.
So I feel lucky that we're in a little bit of a really bitchin' bubble over here where life has remained fairly close to the same thing. I mean, if anything, during the quarantine time, I really loved having no traffic in Los Angeles. It was great.
I bet, man.
Yeah.
Well, Shawn, I'm so glad that your business is doing well. You guys are up on YouTube. You're pumping out fantastic content for all of our readers, viewers, listeners. Before we wrap up, I want to give you an opportunity to plug what you guys are currently working on, any videos that are coming out in the foreseeable future, maybe your favorite video that people can go check out, etc.
Yeah. Well, we're consistent. So every Tuesday and every Friday at 5 p.m. we put up what's next for us. Every once in a while we put in a bonus episode. This coming Sunday is going to be a real fun bonus episode. It's the last quarantine cruise, number 5. I've been a part of all the cruises. My friends are at the heart of that thing, Jason and Heck and Ken and Patrick. So we're putting together a full recap of that, which will be great. Like, I would love people to go watch that this Sunday, especially. I never do social commentary in anything we do. I'm all about cars, but I love our automotive community because we don't see color unless it's the color of the car. We don't see, the economic background other than, holy shit, that was an expensive car. And I love that as I walk around in my community that I see Black people, white people, Hispanic people, Asian people. I see wealthy people, not wealthy people, everything in between. Our passion for the automotive is the great equalizer. And so this video is going to show everybody that, yes, there's a lot of shit going on in our world, but it's not the only thing that's going on in our world. There are actually some of us that get along, and the media would have us believe that all Black people and all white people all hate each other. And it's just not the truth, man. And I love being a part of this automotive community where there's our common passion for the automotive space. It just brings us all into the same zone.
I couldn't agree more, man. It's just that common ground. And, every time I look on social media, there's bad news at every turn, but invariably there's always a cool car that rolls on my news feed. I'm like, that's something I want to look at. That's cool. Yeah. And so I'm really appreciative of what you do. Everybody, drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Obviously, go check out AutotopiaLA's YouTube channel. drop a subscribe and drop a comment to our boy Shawn. Shawn,
Right.
thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I genuinely do.
Definitely, man. I'm going to have to come out there and pay you a visit one of these days.
Come on, man. I'm here.
Well, there you have it, Greg. We had a fantastic interview with Mr. Shawn Davis. So grateful for him to make some time, come on the show and tell us about what he does at AutotopiaLA. It's pretty cool, man.
Dude, it sounds awesome. Like, I wish I knew about that back when I lived in Southern California.
Yeah.
Not that I have anything expensive that I need storage for, but, you know, just to swing by and see what's up and, you know, talking offline. It sounds like we know a lot of the same people. You know, that blew my mind. But
yeah, my $3,000 shitbox El Camino could really, you know, I need it parked next to some high-end builds.
That would be a hilarious picture. I'm not going to lie. But I mean, the Paul Walker stuff, I've seen pictures of that collection. I had no idea that was inside his place.
Yeah, man. You know, he touched on it a little bit, but, you know, in the article, he talks about how he does a lot of business during like trade show season, especially during like the LA Auto Show and SEMA, like he was mentioning. And dude, you have some insane builds that come through the walls of that building. And luckily for us and everybody who goes and checks out his YouTube channel, he puts them up there for us, and we get an inside look. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds like he you know, got the I don't know what the right word is, but I mean where he hit the nail on the head on the first stroke. And
yeah, he found that formula for sure. And I know that there's one other place. I think he said Auto Concierge or something in LA that's doing it, but it's, you know, the more the merrier, especially in LA where storage space is at a premium.
Oh,
so,
yeah. I mean, I can
really
just think about, like, you know, when I go visit my family out there and just trying to park somewhere. I mean, it's you park 3 blocks away and you end up having a walk just to, you know, arms full of stuff because, you know, you're carrying it in from the grocery store. And
dude, I won't go into LA unless I'm on my bike because you're not going to find parking, especially like, and then, you know, nice classic cars or whatever. I don't want to park that on the street. No thanks.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I can't imagine like the anxiety of having all that stuff in his care. I mean,
well,
yeah, I'm sure it's all insured.
He handles it pretty well, yeah. And you know, there's a small amount of people that are touching each one of these cars, and it sounds like they got it down to a science pretty good. So good on them, man. So for our readers, viewers, listeners, check out AutotopiaLA. Their YouTube channel is always pumping out great content. And yeah, give us a like, comment, subscribe, and let us know in the comments section what you think, what you want to hear. It was a great episode, Greg. I had a fantastic time interviewing Shawn. Next week, we will have another great guest for you guys. As always, Friday, noon, Facebook. Let us know where else you guys want to see us. We're thinking about making a jump to YouTube possibly. Let us know. Would you guys subscribe? Drop a link in the comment section below. And catch us next week. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, anytime, Vinny.
Peace out, guys.